open the pod bay doors.
Greetings and welcome to another exciting episode of the Cinematic Traveler Podcast. I am your intrepid movie-exploring host, Chris, and on this episode, I'm going to be bringing you my review for a Netflix film entitled Subservience, directed by S.K. Dale and starring Megan Fox as a sexy robot. Come on, Megan Fox is a sexy robot. If that doesn't get you excited for this episode, nothing on this planet will. I know I'm excited to talk about Megan Fox as a sexy robot. So before we get into all that fun stuff, let me bring you a word from the sponsor of this podcast. That would be yours truly. Whatever you're listening to the show on, be it Apple Podcasts, Spotify, there has to be a follow button somewhere on that screen. If you go ahead and tap that follow button, that would really help both of us out because that's good for my show, but it's also good for you because then you'll know when the show is available. You'll be able to listen to older episodes and whatever comes out new, you'll get an alert. And that's awesome. All of that for free. I don't ask much out of you. One other thing, if you could please leave a rating and a review, I would appreciate that as well. You can also follow me and get in touch with me. Let's stick with Instagram this week at Cinematic Traveler Pod. That's probably the easiest way to get in touch with me. So you can go follow and see what's going on with the show, as well as get in touch with me for our contests and various things of that nature. So there, I got through that quick, fast, and in a hurry so we could dive into this episode. But before I do, let me ask you, how are you doing, my beloved listener? You should be getting this episode towards the end of the week, so you're rushing headlong into the weekend. Hopefully you're not out there having to buy last-minute gifts, or is it even last-minute gifts at this point? I don't know. I don't go to the stores anymore. I know it's wrong to do it, but I order everything off of Amazon. It's just so much easier. And I'm not promoting Amazon, but if they want to support the show, I would greatly appreciate it. But hopefully you're not tangled up in that mess. If you are, hey, listen to the show. That'll help you while you're standing in line, especially if it's a self-checkout line. Oh my God, there are people on this planet who should be nowhere near the self-checkout line. Oh God, I just cringe. But while you're waiting in line, you could tell people what you're listening to. That would help too. Anyway, so I hope you have a good weekend plan and you find the perfect gift for that loved one. So maybe you can have a little fun time in the nude. As for me, I'm just excited to be here talking to you about Subservience in our streaming surprise episode here. So let me go ahead and over-explain things real quick. I am going to be giving you a spoiler-free review as well as a spoiler-free synopsis. Now, in this synopsis, I have hidden 2 movie quotes from movies that are either parallel to this movie or it might be a direct comparison to this movie in some ways. But if you can find those movie quotes, you can enter our movie quote contest and just tell me what movie they're from. Hit me up on Instagram again at Cinematic Traveler Pod. You get a point for each one you get, and at the end of the month, I tally up the points, and whoever wins gets to pick a movie for me to review next month. How about that? You're not getting that on other podcasts. I bring you into the Cinematic Traveler experience. You're part of it. And again, that's all for free. For you, not for me. But let's go ahead and bring you my plot review for Subservience. That is very hard to say. I feel like I'm saying that wrong. It's a really weird word. Is that really a word? I should have checked. I should have looked up to see if that's an actual word. Anyway, this is directed by S.K. Dale. Now, we start the movie with a little montage to let us know that our hero, Nick, played by, and I know I'm going to butcher his name here. Is it Michelle Marone or Michael Marone? I'm not sure. He is from another country that isn't America, so that, I'm instantly confused by that. But he has his wife, Maggie, played by Madeline Zima. Wasn't that a drink back in the 90s or something? Oh, Lord, I'm going off the rails early in this episode. So Maggie, we find out, has a severe heart condition, which leads her, she basically gets put in the hospital. She's waiting for a transplant. Now, Nick and Maggie, they have 2 kids. One is a precocious little girl named Isla, and then they also have a baby boy. Now, these kids, plus Nick's job as a construction foreman, have been stressing poor Nick out. So he decides to invest in a robot to help him care for the kids and the house. And not just any robot, a Megan Fox version named Alice. Now, who wouldn't choose the Megan Fox version of this robot? Does anybody get me saying robot? Since Nick apparently has never seen a sci-fi movie in his life, he sees nothing wrong with bringing Alice home. And at first, Alice is a helpful addition to the family. But as you may have guessed, because you have seen other sci-fi movies, things start to unravel. First, Nick has a sexual encounter with Alice. Shocking, I know. Causing his wife to be a bit suspicious of this robot, with Nick telling her, "You're right to be suspicious. I shagged her." What? I shagged a rotten baby, yeah. If y'all don't get that one, that's really, really sad. Maybe I should have done it in a British accent. Oh, I'm just giving that one away. That's a freebie for you. That's a free point. So, of course, the revelation of what has happened causes a rift between husband and wife. And when Alice tries to slide her way in there, but Nick spurns her, this causes her circuits to go haywire, and she comes after Nick and his family. Now, they know that she can't be bargained with. It can't be reasoned with. It doesn't feel pity or remorse or fear, and it absolutely will not stop, ever, until you are dead. Now, with Alice chasing after him, we have to ask, will Nick terminate this mechanical manslaughter machine, or will Alice complete her diabolical transformation and kill all the humans in her way? Especially the men, because they'll be pretty easy, because, Megan Fox robot, it's not going to be a challenge for old Alice on that regard. But I will not spoil the movie by answering these questions, but I am going to give you the best review for Subservience on all the podcast universe. Hell, all the universe. Damn it, this is the best podcast out there, bar none. So moving into the review, if this is your first time listening, I do break my reviews down into 3 segments: the good, the bad, and the nitpicky. The good is the stuff that works for me in the movie. The bad, obviously, stuff that doesn't. And the nitpicky is neither stuff that's good nor bad, just little things here and there in movies that I see that make me laugh. Could be Hollywoodisms, could just be silly things in the movie. And hopefully I can make you laugh with these observations, because if there's one thing I love to do, that is make people laugh. And hopefully I am doing that with this podcast. I know I say that every time, but you can let me know. You can always let me know. So let's start off with the good of Subservience. God, that is very difficult to say. Boy. Let's see if I could come up with something here. This is going to be a bit of a struggle. The film looks fine. For a direct-to-Netflix, I think it's direct-to-Netflix film. It doesn't really look low budget. It's not Citizen Kane here or Goodfellas or anything. It's not shattering expectations visually, but it does its job visually. How about that? I never got distracted by anything or was bored by anything visually on the screen. I will say, and I'll get into this later, that this is supposed to be a sci-fi horror movie. As I mentioned, I will bring that up later, but there was this one scene that it creeped me out, and I don't know if it was a vision this character was having or if this was reality, but I think her name is Maggie, the wife. She's going into surgery for this heart transplant, and all the doctors are these robots. But they have, all the other robots in the movie look like people, but these, they have, this skin graft over their mouth, and they don't have any eyelids. They look like what Deadpool was at the end of Wolverine Origins movie. You know how he looked with his mouth all sealed up and his eyelids cut off? That's about what they look like. I couldn't help but be creeped out by that, because I'm like, she's about to get put under, and the last thing she sees are these horrible, scary-looking robots coming at her with, knives and stuff. Oh, my God, I'd die right there before they even got a chance to put the heart in me. But anyway, that was a pretty good visual experience. I did like that there were different types of robots. As I mentioned, they all kind of look human as they're going through the movie. You have a lot of interaction with other robots of Alice's ilk, where they're more like, nannies and stuff like that. But they have they have her model and different other women-looking models. They have an old dude that she gets in a confrontation with. And I like that they have this moment. I mentioned that Nick is this construction foreman, but they have these robots that come in and work for putting this building together. And I like that there's sort of the separation with them. They're just sort of mindless drones. They get told what to do, and they move here and there. And I think they were the only ones that didn't blink, if I'm not mistaken, which I always like when they do the right. Haley Joel Osment or Haley Joel Osment. Well, I can't remember when he did AI. He decided he wouldn't blink. Anyway, I thought that was a good little touch there. Let's see, as far as the cast, Megan Fox, she is perfectly cast in this film as a being with no emotion in their voice or on their face. Maybe this is Megan Fox's Oscar-worthy performance here. I'm not saying she's great in the movie, but it's just, if you wanted someone that cannot emote in any way, shape, or form, Megan Fox does a fine job. I will say the wife, Maggie, played by Madeline Zima, I thought she did a really good job. I think of all the performances there, she was trying. I think I mentioned this in another episode. Sometimes you watch some of these streaming service movies and there's someone on there that you're like, hey, you're trying too hard for what this is. But I appreciated her effort. She kind of reacted to things the way you would think someone would react. And look at me, I'm finding some positives for this movie. I'm not that cynical. Let's see. There were some interesting ideas posed by the movie. Nothing unique. Again, I'll get to that in a minute. But the stuff with the robo-love, there's a moment where Maggie finds out that Nick basically bangs Robot. Probably because she was bow-legged when she walked into the room. But anyway, so they have this big argument, and he says, this is just a machine that's no different than your vibrator. And, for a second, I thought, that's interesting. Would it be different than, I mean, clearly if you're using some other device, you're thinking about someone or something. Anyway, I thought that was a pretty cool idea. They really doesn't go anywhere. There's also a little bit where Alice sort of gets reset and she's sort of learning new things from humans. I thought that was a pretty good idea. That actually reminded me, this movie reminds me a lot, to be honest with you, of the Child's Play reboot they did a few years back with Aubrey Plaza and Mark Hamill. And I think that movie did things a little bit better, but how this robot sort of picks up the way humans act to each other. There's times where Nick has to explain, no, this is how we do things. And I kind of like that. I thought that would have been an interesting take in the movie to see this maybe innocent robot suddenly become evil simply by learning it from humans. You know what I mean? What else? Let's see. There was something with the wife I thought was pretty interesting, and that circles back to the robo-love thing. I mean, it would have been cool. It would have been more of a drama, but if she's dealing with this hard thing and she's been sick for a while, so I'm sure, you lose weight and got scars, and she comes back into this house where not only are her kids sort of happy with this robot, you've got this Megan Fox looking robot with your husband. So there could be some real emotional moments there with her having to deal with whether she's attractive to him anymore and trying to rekindle that love. That would have been interesting. See, I'm writing interesting movies for you. And then the last little thread they had was there was the construction. I talked to this earlier. This construction robots taking jobs from people. Again, that could have been interesting as well. Again, none of these get really dealt with in a very interesting way, but they were there. Let's see, the last positive of this movie, it was under 2 hours. I think it was an hour and 45 minutes. And if I've said it once, I'll say it a million times. Any movie that comes in under 2 hours, it always gets a positive from me. Let's go ahead and move into the bad or the negative of the movie. As I mentioned with the ideas that this movie brings up, this is generic. You've seen this movie in, oh my God, I don't know how many times, especially lately. It seems like that's all we're getting, especially, I guess, because of all the AI taking over things. But in fact, they had that movie this year, Afraid, that was about an AI. It kind of is similar to this, where it comes in, it helps things, and then it decides it's going to, be evil in ways. What was that, Megan, that came out last year or the year before? The same similar movie. I mentioned the Child's Play reboot. Westworld, either the movie or the show, kind of follows the same line of thought, where the robot becomes violent and because it wants what it wants. So there's nothing new or creative in that regard. This isn't breaking the mold. This isn't challenging you as an audience member. You'll see stuff and you'll be like, oh yeah, that reminds me of this, that reminds me of that. So, and it was really generic. So it kind of slows the movie down, which is another negative. For an hour and 45 minutes, about, oh God, I would say after the first little introduction, it's really slows down and you're dealing with sort of the seduction of Nick, as it were. I guess this robot seducing him, it's hard to tell. But anyway, it gets a bit repetitive and boring and drab. And by the time everything kicks up in the third act, you're kind of drifting off and playing on your phone, or whatever it is you people do when you Netflix and chill. Let's see, I mentioned it doesn't really follow with the ideas. I will say, I did think of a question I have to ask you out there, especially you ladies. If you were married and you were stuck in the hospital and your husband walked in with the kids and pushing the stroller was a robot that looked like Megan Fox. Now, I have to ask, is there a unit of time measurement that would explain how quickly you would assume that your husband has been fucking this doll or this robot at any rate? Would it be nanoseconds, milliseconds? I don't know. I mean, as soon as it walked in, any woman in her right mind would be like, oh, hell no, that doll's going back. It would be the same for me. If I was in the hospital and my wife came in with the kids and, Chris Hemsworth robot is pushing the stroller, I'd be like, oh, hell no. You got the receipt for that? Because that's going back. We're all going to be replaced. That's how the machines are going to beat us. They're not going to like be like Terminators and just kill us all. They're just going to fuck us to death. And you know what? I'm all for it. Plus, what other negatives are there? The husband, I talked about him. Bless this actor's heart. I don't know where he's from, but man, his accent was so thick. And there were points in this movie I didn't understand a damn word he was saying. And he really didn't have a whole lot of range either. He could have been a robot for all I know. Oh, and he only has one outfit through the whole movie. He's got his jeans, his work boots, a shirt, and a work jacket. I think that's all he wears through the whole movie. It was ridiculous. Apparently, they had to save money somewhere, and it was on his outfit, his costume. And yeah, this is supposed to be a sci-fi horror movie, but there's really no horror in it. It's not scary. A lot of that comes from the fact that it's so generic that you've seen everything, you know where it's leading. But really, until the end of the movie, she doesn't really do anything horrific. And then it kind of all hits at the end. The third act is just her basically turning into the Terminator. So there's nothing here that's really going to satisfy you as a horror fan. And I will say the sci-fi element, okay, you got the robots and it's nice to see that and some of the things they add to it. But it's just generic. You've seen this movie. It's like an AI just made this movie because it's taking pieces out of these other movies. I'm not going to say better movies, but these other movies that, just cobble it together and make Subservience. And while I could go on and on with all the bad things I've seen in this movie, the fact that they can't afford the bills, but they can go buy this robot, it makes no sense. It's all just basically going to fall back to it being generic, unmemorable, uninteresting. It's almost like a Blumhouse movie. It's exactly what you're going to get here. You're going to get a few ideas and they're never followed through on, and then there'll be some mayhem at the end, and that'll be that, and a setup for a sequel. So let's go ahead and move into the nitpicky of the movie. Again, these are things that are neither good nor bad in the movie, just things that stick out to me to make me laugh. And hopefully, you will laugh. Maybe I should just say, damn it, you will laugh. I will will you to laughter. That's the power I have. The cult of the cinematic traveler. The first thing, and this one, it kills me when I see these in movies. And again, if you've listened to any other episodes, I grew up with a car guy, and my son is a car guy, so I know a little bit. I don't know a lot. I'm probably the last guy you want to call in my family, but I know enough. So throughout the movie, Nick has this old muscle car that he works on, and Hollywood, please just go down the street, find a mechanic, and bring him onto the set that day and show him how to do something that looks like they're actually working on the car. This guy is turning wrenches in places where I'm like, what the fuck is he even doing on this car? It's pointless. And then the funniest thing is they show him driving. He drives up to his work site and the brakes are squeaking all the way down the road. I'm like, maybe this guy shouldn't be turning a wrench over here by the radiator. He should be over there changing the brake pads out. So Hollywood, again, just bring a mechanic on a set for that day. Help me with the realism in that. So let's see, my next nitpick for the movie. This one, this might get a little racy out there for some of you, but there is a moment in the movie where Alice, she can register people's feelings and stress levels. She understands that Nick, he has an elevated stress level. So she devises a way to relieve his stress. Is it by her mouth with the glowing UV light to kill all bacteria? No. She's going to give him an old-fashioned. She's going to give him a nice hand job out in the garage. Well, earlier in the scene, Nick, he's kind of drunk, and he's about to throw a bottle against the wall. And Alice reaches out and stops his arm, like instantly catches this guy going full muscle, strong ahead, and she stops him right in his tracks with her arm, and she just grabs him real quick. And he doesn't throw a bottle. She's like, "You're not going to hurt yourself." Well, that same hand is the one she decides to down his pants. Now, as a man, I have to say, I'm not averse to a good handy every now and then. Oh, man, hey, it'll do in a pinch. But maybe not by an arm that is capable of crushing a car door. That feels a little risky to me. I don't want that machine to malfunction at that moment in time. That would be a bad way to relieve some stress. Oh boy, if Alice just no, I'm not even gonna think about what she could have done with that arm and ripped it. Oh my god. Oh. Anyway, yeah, I would have been like, no, Alice, I appreciate that. Let's think of other ways. God, I'm sorry, but if you have a robot that looks like Megan Fox, yeah. Anyway, I'm gonna get in trouble if I keep following that line of thought. My last nitpick of this movie, and this is for the little girl Isla, whatever the hell her name was. This is all her fault. This whole movie is her fault. Because early on, apparently her mother has this secret family recipe for a lasagna. And all young Isla wants is her mom's lasagna. Because obviously she's at the hospital, she can't cook it. So that's really what instigates this whole thing. Because she asked Alice at the store, she said, "Can you make a lasagna?" So when they get home, Alice makes the lasagna. But she doesn't have the recipe, obviously. And the little girl's like, it's not as good as Bob's. Well, then when the mom finally makes her way back home, she makes her lasagna. And she gives the dishes out, and the little girl tastes it. She's like, "Oh, this is so much better than Alice. Alice could never make anything like this. Alice is a piece of shit. Her ingredients are terrible. Her recipe is the worst thing ever." And the robot's sitting right there. I'm like, yeah, this is it. I don't blame the robot now. I'd want to kill that little girl too, you little ungrateful brat. This poor robot's been slaving away and making this lasagna every other night to please this child. And she just gets it thrown back in her face. Up your butt with a coconut, Isla. I wish that robot would have wiped you all out. So wrapping up my review for Subservience, I will say, this is tough. Because I don't think this movie is like horrifically terrible. It's not bad enough to laugh at, but it's not very good. It's kind of like right down the middle. Meh. I know that's the terms all you young people like to use nowadays. I would say for me, it was below average, but I don't think it's something that if you did watch it, you would be like, "Oh my God, I can't believe I wasted an hour and 45 minutes." You would be like, "Okay, that was exactly what it was." And blah, I'll forget. I forgot about it when I was writing all my notes down. I was like, wait, what exactly happened in this movie? So I would tell you to pass on it. I didn't think it was very good. It was generic. You've seen this movie countless times in different forms, and it's just the same shit. It doesn't bring anything new or interesting unless you want to look at Megan Fox. Even that, I should have put that in the negatives. You don't get a whole lot of sexiness. There's only like a couple little scenes. So you're not going to get a whole lot of that either. So overall, I would tell you just to go ahead and pass on this movie. Again, if you do want to watch it, just be warned. It's going to be average and generic. You've seen this movie. So, enter at your own risk, as it were. But for everybody else, if you're on the fence, I'll tell you just pass. Go watch The Terminator, the original, man. That's how you do a sci-fi horror movie. Good God, that movie was scary as hell, man. Woo. Arnold, terrified me back then when I was a kid. Anyway, so that wraps up Subservience. If you're still listening, then I must have done something right. And if I did, again, click that follow button. Give me a rating, a review. You know what? In the review, let's play around with some algorithms. Instead of writing some review of the show, write the name of the celebrity robot you would want to show up in your house. And you could, have them clean or other fun things. Anyway, do that. Now let's see what the algorithm does with that. That would be kind of fun. Also, if you want to get in touch with me or follow me on Instagram at Cinematic Traveler Pod, you can also DM me on that with the movies the quotes are from. That way you can participate in the contest. There are a few of you out there that are batting 1,000% on these these quotes. I might have to throw in a few more challenging ones. But if you are new to the show, you can go back to the first episode in December. I think maybe that was Nutcrackers, but I'm not sure. And you can listen to those plot synopses and pull those movie quotes out as well. You've got until the end of the month, and like I said, I'll add them all up there. So definitely participate. It's fun. I know it's dorky, but you know what? Come on, be uncool with Chris. All right? It's okay to be uncool with Chris. I'll let you put your guard down. You don't have to be the alpha in here at the Cinematic Traveler podcast. I'll be the alpha for you. You could just have fun. I told you, I'm totally off the rails right now. That's what I get for doing this in the middle of the week after work. Where was I at? Oh, I'm just happy that you are here listening to the podcast. I tell everyone I know that I've got the smartest and sexiest audience in all the podcast universe, and you never fail to live up to those high standards. And now, as you are traveling around on this blue and green ball, bouncing through the cosmos, I need you to do one thing for me. Well, two things for me. Stay away from those Megan Fox robots and do that voodoo that you do so well. Punch it.